Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks for being here tonight to listen to my waitlist story. Thanks a lot to Viviana for giving me this opportunity to share my kind of interesting story with you. So, hello everyone. As Viviana mentioned, I am Angela from Struga, North Macedonia, and I managed to get off the waitlist this May. So, here's a bit of my journey. I will start off with, the decisions from admissions come in the period of March. So from the period of 14th of March to 27th of March, I had experienced a lot of, I would say, hard decisions because all of them I got were waitlists and rejections. So because US, is 6 hours or depends on the location back from us, I received more of them in the morning. So I got up for nearly 15 days using your regret to inform you that you are rejected or you were waitlisted. So on 24th of March, Lafayette was supposed to be out, but because of the COVID-19 or Corona crisis, they decided to postpone their decisions and change some of them. So I was among the changed ones who they changed my decision from accepted to waitlisted, and I got this beautiful letter that you can see here on 27th of March. So here they said that they are enrolling SQS0 to more than 100, which that means that some years waitlisted students don't are not given a chance at all to participate in the class. And also they said that if I must pay an enrollment deposit in another college, please do, so you have a chance. That was good, but this was this waitlist of Lafayette College together with the other four waitlists were my only chance because I didn't have where I would enroll. So the next day I spent like this. So my laptop and I spent day 2 or 3 days just searching through Google, through every single blog post, video on YouTube I could find on waitlist for international students. So I just go off all of them. I searched on Reddit. I see all Super Tutor TV. What you can say from this are most of them said the one that international students are very very hard to get off the waitlist. Why? Because many of the US colleges have a limited number for internationals, and most of them, because they have a lot number of students who are applying, they are filling out your first the early decision, early action one, early decision two, regular decision, and there is not enough place for waitlists. Moreover, I was a student who was searching full financial aid, and it was a lot harder for colleges to give full financial aid at the last point, especially not in this COVID-19 crisis when there is a need for, I would say, funding for all of them. So I was on the edge to give up until I saw these two wonderful videos that you can see here. So one was them a boy that got off the waitlist of Princeton and a girl that got off the waitlist at Yale. So they were internationals, and I don't know if they were with full pay or with full scholarship, but the one thing that was for sure, they got off the waitlist. So I thought that it is possible, but it was a little bit harder. Again, I decided to go on this journey because I passed a lot of time spending on SATs, TOEFL, writing essays, and a lot of activities throughout my 4 years. So I don't want to miss the last chance. So what is a waitlist from student perspective? I really like these two Reddit posts that I have found. So waitlist students, you are just looking at everybody who is being admitted, and you have like two windows to go. The one to rejected and the one to admitted. I am a positive person, and I suggest all of you to do that, to look at the people that got in, so you can hope that you will join them just for a month. And these karate kids that have like he has problems with breathing, and you can see all of these medicals that are connected with him, and he's again trying to fight for his wish. So waitlist is kind of this, as Reddit said, and as I will agree. So you have to a lot, and you don't have to give up in the last place. It's just to prove what you want and to go further. So how you're going to prove to colleges that you want to be admitted even if you got to waitlisted. So that is one magical, I would say, type of letter of continued interest. I firstly heard about this letter when I got on waitlist at the last waitlist of Lafayette College. So you will ask, how does one write the letter of continued interest. I didn't know. So what I did was go through all of these different types of media that I have found, again, searching. So the college essay guide, the one that saved me through a lot of activities, a lot of essays that I have written, Prep Scholar, my favorite, and I just made a big list of what I should include. But it can be written nearly 4 points: what is new in your life and what have you accomplished. So after you submit that apply button, they want to know what have you done. Were you just laying out in bed so you can see the admissions and you just finally admitted and you don't have to worry about nothing, or you were like chasing what you've been doing? That is the most important thing. So prove that you have passion for the activities. And I think, as a person who was doing this whole waitlist process and was talking a lot with the admission officers, they found that me continuing the activities that I have done before I applied and I have done after was the crucial thing that I think got me off the waitlist. So here is the most important thing: to not stop what you're doing, because it will look like you are doing all of that just to hit that apply button and that's it. But if you have passion and you are doing all these activities because you want to, that will shine, I would say, in your letter of continued interest. Because if you write something in your application that you have a dream for something, I don't know, to open a non-profit or to go to Olympiads, and if you completely magically stop everything after you submit that apply button in the LOC or the letter of continued interest, that will be as a bad point. The crucial thing that, as long as it is true, tell them that you would go there if admitted. And I think one of the most important thing, because you know the class is nearly full, they will just admit people who are instead of the places who will defer their offer, and they won't spare their time to see people's profiles who won't like to go there, especially for international students, and especially for international students who need full funding. They don't want to spare their, I would say, precious funding that they have on someone that will defer their offer at the end. So as long as it is true, as long as you will really go there if accepted, please write that in your letter and on your emails. And lastly, prove your passion for the school, that you're not just writing just a LOC and that's it, but you really want to go there. And this is like a last chance to prove that you really want to be at that school, like a last chance to tell them that if you are there, many things will be better, not only firstly for you and how you will contribute, but for them. So, you know, like all of the why essays, also you have to prove here that you are the perfect student. This is your last chance to shine. And one of the most important thing also is contact. So keep in touch with the admission office. This doesn't mean that you have to write an email every single day to ask them how is the waitlist going, but occasional email contact will be considered beneficial. And I'm not only speaking that. Here are some screenshots from the colleges that have waitlisted me. So FNM said that they would really like me to have an occasional email contact with your regional dean. Also, Lafayette College, the one that accepted me, said that an update letter will be truly appreciated. Not only this, also UPenn sent me that they would like to see my update through the Penn applicant portal, and they sent another email like this to send another Penn applicant portal. So they really want to see not only what you'll be doing, but how you will contribute, and they want to see your interest. They want to see that even after a month, do you really want to go to a school, or it was just writing a letter of continued interest and you're like missed out. Also, send a supplemental. Don't be afraid to just keep it what others say or what Reddit says or what I don't know, students who have been done that the last years. Try something new and go beyond your borders. If you have some talents, good. If you don't have, like, search it down on YouTube, film some video. For example, for Lafayette College, I filmed a small video telling how I will contribute to their campus, and in every single situation, what I will do and how I will implement my projects, and maybe that is what helped me. But don't be afraid to showcase what you have, because, as I said, last moment to shine. And everything here resulted in this letter that I got on 18th of May. So it was year of interesting ride for me, because I started this admissions process, I would say, on 1st of June, when I firstly decided to take the SAT subject test, and nearly a year later, I got the first final congratulations letter from all my 19 colleges I have applied. So it turns out that not the Reddit post, not the posts from Super Tutor TV were exactly correct, because they said that internationals don't have a chance, but as long as you're alive on this planet, you have a choice, and your choice should be to go for it if you really want it. So I would define waitlist as a test for your dream, and if you really want it, go for it. You will never know what can happen. Even if the admissions are only 2% or 0%, you or 0.5, even if it is one person who gets out the waitlist, you can be that one person. You will never know if you never try. So thank you very much for your attention. All questions are more than welcomed, and any inquiries that happen after this, please contact me at my email, find me on social medias. I will be more than happy to answer you guys.
Thank you, Angela. This was wonderful. Thank you for the presentation. As I said, we really enjoyed the visual aspect of the presentation. I have to say that, but all the little tips and sharing your experience, although this was a rough journey for you, right? As you said, you really didn't have a confirmed yes until June 1st. So for you, it was not that smooth, but I'm glad that it turned out so well at the end. So as I mentioned at the beginning, today with us, we also have a university representative. So welcome, Miss Lisa Rainey. Lisa is an admission associate director for international admissions at Syracuse University. Actually, it's the first time I think we have a representative from Syracuse University for our students, and I'm happy that today we have audience, I think people from other countries as well, not from Macedonia only. And it will be interesting to hear the discussion continuing on this topic about waitlists, and especially international students and waitlists from a university perspective. We heard Angela and her tips. I would be glad to hear your comments on that maybe at the end. But first of all, feel free to share your slides and your presentation, and afterwards we can answer some questions.
Wonderful. Well, can everyone hear me all right? I want to make sure my mic is working. I do apologize for showing up a few minutes late. I was having some computer trouble, but I'm very glad to be here, and I was glad to see the last few moments of Angela's presentation. You did a wonderful job and kind of covered a lot of the same things that I'm hoping to cover today. But again, my name is Lisa Rainey. I do work in the international admissions team at Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York, and I'm very glad to be with you today to talk to you a little bit more about how that waitlist works for the university side. So I'm here to speak kind of more generally about American universities. I'll give you some examples from other institutions as well as Syracuse, but we'll cover a lot of different kind of general pieces of information that'll be good for you to know there. So the way the application process works in the US, as you may know, is that it's a holistic application review. So we're looking at a lot of different qualities: academic experience and curriculum and grades, test scores for students whose native language is not English. We are SAT optional or ACT optional for students outside the US. So if you send those, we'll look at those. If you don't, we won't. But we're looking at a lot of different factors in making those decisions. And as you may know, when you apply to an American university, you're likely to get one of four types of decisions. So either an acceptance, which is what we all hope for, whether that's a full acceptance or conditional, maybe waiting for TOEFL scores or waiting for financial documentation. You might get denied admission. You might be deferred. So let's say you applied early decision, a small number of students might be deferred to regular decision to give us more time to take a look at everything. Or you might get that waitlist offer, which is of course what we're here to speak about today. So the reason why we do a waitlist, and I'm kind of speaking broadly for American universities, is that we get, often top-ranked universities get thousands and thousands of applications per year, and many of them are from students who are very strong and meet kind of our general admissions guidelines or requirements, but we can't offer admission to that many people. You know, we work, sometimes admissions is called enrollment management in our circles, and that's because we're trying to manage just the right number of students coming into our first year class, and that's by major and academic program. So we're trying to make sure we get just the right number of students in each of those programs. So at Syracuse, for example, we get typically between 30 to 35,000 applications per year. And we're hoping to bring in a first-year class each year of about 3,600 students. So if we accepted everyone with a certain grade point average, we might have a first-year class of 8 or 10,000 people, which is much bigger than what we're looking for. So this is a way for us to kind of manage the class and do our best to get that just right number of students coming in August every year. So the way we do that is we track, there's a lot of data analysis that goes on our side, and we track year after year how many students we admit, and then how many students of those students, offers that are gone out, how many of those students accept those offers. And that's called yield in the admissions world. So you'll impress admissions officers if you ask them what their yield is, or their international student yield. But what happens if our calculations are a little bit off in a given year and maybe fewer students accept those offers, then we'll go to that wait list. That's what it's for. So if we have spots available in a particular program or in that incoming class, we'll then go to our wait list and make offers to those students. So I hope that makes sense. So how often do universities accept students from their wait list? I heard Angela talking about this a little bit during her part of the presentation. Like many factors involved in the US application process, it'll vary by institution and it varies by year. 1 year waitlist activity might be very different from the year before or the year after. So I shared some stats here and I have some links for you at the end. But a US News and World Report survey of last year showed that about 20% overall of waitlisted students receive some kind of offer to one of their institutions. And by college or university in a given year, they might accept 0 students from the waitlist, or they might accept everybody who's been on that waitlist. It really just varies. And I know that uncertainty is hard, but I loved the advice that Angela gave, which is to try. And we'll talk a little bit more about strategies and sort of what to expect in that process. But try for it. You just won't know unless you really give it your best effort. So ultimately, we get this question a lot every year from students who are given waitlist offers. How will I know? When will I know? When we extend those offers of admission to students, we have to give them until May 1st to let us know if they'll be accepting it or not. And really, in most cases, we won't know until after May 1 if we'll be able to go to that wait list. So we'll talk a little bit more about what to do if you get one of those waitlist offers. And I think the first piece of advice I give students all the time is try not to take it personally. It's not that you didn't work hard enough or that you did something wrong. It's nothing, it really isn't a reflection on you or your hard work. It's basically us saying, we think that you're a very good student. We can't offer you admission just yet. So it's not a no, it's a maybe, not yet kind of situation. It's okay to have an emotional response, to be upset, to be, kind of disappointed in that decision. We understand that. Give yourselves a little time before responding to ask questions of the admissions office. We understand that. But kind of talk it over with your family if you need to. Give yourself a day or two to sort of work through that a little bit. And yes, it's definitely a conversation that you should have with your family to decide, do I want to stay on this wait list and take my chances? Or do I not? Do I just want to go ahead and accept an offer from a school that has already admitted me and kind of be done with that process? And students can kind of fall on both sides of that spectrum. So I loved the examples that Angela gave, bits of advice that she had gotten from different universities, because we're all a little different in what we might ask of you. The letter or email that you receive should tell you some more information about what to do to maybe accept your spot on the wait list or to decline it if that's your choice. And you should certainly think about with your family accepting an offer from another school, because we kind of work with that May 1 deadline. And then if you wait till after that date, you may or may not be able to still accept an offer from another institution. So think it over, commit to another institution in the meantime. But if you still want to give a try to this wait list, you can go through the process with that particular university. And I think it's good to know, and this is a good question to ask of your admissions officers at the universities you're looking at. Oftentimes scholarships and financial aid might be limited for students who are ultimately accepted from the wait list. That might vary year to year, but that's a good question to ask as well, just so that you can plan ahead maybe for what to expect if you were to receive an offer eventually. So the next slide, how do I improve my chances of being accepted from the wait list? Definitely talk to your admissions officers. Policies will be a little different at every institution, and we'll all be very happy to sort of walk you through what you should do. I know Angela was talking about emailing, not too often. You don't need to email every day. We tend to tell students that every 7 to 10 days is really fine to send an email. There are some students who will sort of call us every day, and it gets a little awkward because we don't have anything new to say. Nothing's really changed. We're still kind of waiting. So I would say give us an email every 7 to 10 days to let us know that you're interested, and we'll be happy to kind of keep track of those emails and those contacts that you send to us. As Angela talked about, if you feel that that university is your first choice, if you accept me, I'll definitely commit. Feel free to say that in your outreach to them. If it's not true, don't feel like you need to say it. We understand that you're weighing a lot of different offers, but if that is how you feel and how your family feels about that, feel free to indicate that in your email. You can always update us on new accomplishments, new accolades, any honors or awards that you've received since the time that you sent in your application. You can talk to professors or teachers at your school to send in a new letter of recommendation. Sometimes students want to send us 10 or 15 letters of recommendation, and that's a bit too much. But a new 1 or 2 letters, that's always fine. We're happy to add that to your file. And then new academic information is really your best bet. So if you have any new grades or test scores, any kind of academic info that's new from the time that we reviewed your application, you can certainly have your teachers or someone from your school send that too. And we like to see that new academic information. So this is pretty generally good advice, but always talk to the admissions officer at your university that you're hoping to be admitted to see if that checks out for what they're expecting from you. So some things to try to avoid doing. You don't need to call or write every day. Like I said, every 7 to 10 days is definitely great. We know that you're out there and that you're still interested. This is less relevant, I would say, for most international students, but we generally don't encourage you to visit campus when you're in that waitlisted status. If you happen to be in the US and that's what you're there to do, talk to the admissions office, see what they can arrange for you. But it can get a little awkward. Students typically have a good time when they visit campus and they really like it, and it's really difficult if you're just not sure what your status is to sort of get in the car and leave campus and not know where you stand with the university. So if possible, again, this is less of an issue with international students unless you're already in the US. Try to hold off on visiting campus until you know if you've been given admission. This doesn't happen often, but don't send gifts or fruit or food or anything like that to the admissions office. Ethically, we're really not supposed to accept things like that. It doesn't really happen very often, but not necessary and not a good thing to do. It's just not something that needs to be part of that process, not something you really need to worry about. So the May 1 deadline means something a little different than it used to as we move forward in the university process, but you still want to commit to another university by their posted deadline to make sure that if you don't get an offer from the wait list, you'll still have plans, a good place to go in the fall semester. We don't want you to be sort of stuck without a university to go to. Nobody wants that for you. So we do get a lot of questions about the deposits. So typically when you accept your offer from a university, you submit that deposit. If you withdraw from that university, some of them will give you that deposit back, some of them won't. That's another good question to ask of your admissions officer. And you don't have to say, oh, I'm waiting to get off the wait list at this other place and I'd like my money back. You can just say, well, if I change my mind, what's your policy on those deposit refunds, and see what they say. And we understand that sometimes students change their mind in May and June and July. That's part of the process. So a couple of good links here for you, and you can kind of Google these articles too. But there was a great article in Forbes magazine from last year, and then US News and World Report with some good statistics on how many universities accept students from their wait list, some good background there, and I pulled some of those numbers from these articles in particular. So if you've done a little research, you may have seen these already, but I think they're good resources. So I'm always happy to answer questions, even if it's not specific to Syracuse, if it's just about applying to American universities in general or how to navigate all that. So again, this is me. That's my email address on your screen. So I'm always really excited to hear from students and parents too. If there's anything we can kind of help you with along the way, always happy to do that. So I've had my screen up. I haven't been able to see the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing this presentation. Hopefully you got a screenshot of my email, or I can type it in the chat box. And then we'll pop back into the chat and see if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Lisa. And yes, please feel free to turn on your mic or your camera if you like to ask a question, or just type the questions in the chat box. I think we have the first one.
I would say I applied to 19 universities, as I mentioned. I was waitlisted from 5 universities, and Lafayette is the only one that put me off of the waitlist.
And we had a previous session with Angela about her application process. Especially, we focus on the financial aspect or the financial aid that universities are offering. But she mentioned there that applying to 19 schools as well is a lot. So maybe while we are waiting for questions, we can give some additional tips to students who are here today that really, as Angela mentioned, right, there's a lot of writing involved in preparing those 19 applications, right? It's not only about, filling that one common application, but there's a lot of additional work. Angela, you would agree, right? And I know you gave some good tips about this as well.
Yeah, just here I would like to mention again, I mentioned the previous session, but as I see we have some new students, I made the crucial mistake was procrastination and leaving all my applications after 25th and till the new year. So most of the admissions office and the financial aid offices were closed, and I couldn't get all the information, and that was a lot of more stress that I didn't need it. And also, I would say that I spent a lot of time, instead of celebrating Christmas, instead of celebrating New Year, I spent them writing essays. So I can see there are questions in the chat. So how being CCC student helped you in the application process? A lot. I would say completely changed my life in first, because SAT, I would say SAT, especially the English part, was really my weak point. And I would say that my first SAT that I had the last summer, I made around 1,000 like practice SAT. It was really low, and I managed to increase my score. For me, the mathematical part wasn't the problem, but the English, the writing and the reading part were really hard and difficult. So I managed from 330, that was my score that I got into the first practice SAT, to get up to 650. Even it wasn't a good score, it was really a great improvement that I felt. Also, the being a CC student helped me a lot in writing all the essays. Also, I was an opportunity funds scholar that really helped me to sort out many things that I don't know if my family would be able. Also, the help from Biljana at every point. She actually believed in me in the cases when I didn't, till the last point, to writing low C and or letter of continued interest. Really, it was a changing life process. Was it stressful getting waitlist, Juven? It was like nearly I failed all the admissions process. I would say I felt like that, because all the chances, all the Reddit posts that I have reading said that it is impossible, especially in this crisis, especially if you're an international student. It was practically a huge surprise when on the 18th of May, I got up and I saw Lafayette update portal, you are admitted. It was basically like the greatest surprise that I have gotten from my life. I woke up 15 days before, as I mentioned, in March, with all rejections and waitlisted, and it was a lot stressful. So guys, please finish your applications earlier so you don't get into.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add on to what you're saying, absolutely. It's amazing if you procrastinated. You must have still been very organized to apply to 19 universities. So kudos for that. But you're very right. And we give the same advice to students. That deadline of January 1 that most universities have for regular decision, no one's on campus at that time. So it's the New Year holiday. Offices are closed. We're checking email, but we're celebrating holidays with our families too. So if you can get your applications in maybe late November, early December for that deadline, it'll let you get your life back a little bit and kind of have that relief. And it lets you, you're exactly right, celebrate the holidays with your family. If you have a school break, you can enjoy that rather than thinking, okay, 5 more essays and then I can have dinner with my family. You can sort of alleviate some of that stress. Yes, I think it is stressful, we see from students who are waitlisted because it's uncertain. So maybe you have an offer and you've taken that offer from another university, but your heart's kind of still over here with another institution and you're just literally waiting. So it is tricky, but I think that's where using your resources through EdUSA and the admissions officers at your universities, we can kind of help you through that process, hopefully, and hopefully that will work out.
So
Okay.
what I plan for the upcoming year, do you have some projects to do or any long-term projects? So as I said, I was admitted on the 18th of May. So before I had applied to UK universities and that was my plan, but now this turned my life, I would say, upside down. It's a really big uncertainty that we are now facing with the COVID-19 crisis, and planning now, for example, I would be able to do something because I was enrolled in a non-profit organization, and I don't know if I would be able to make some projects outside or not. I don't know if there will be any groups available, so I would just postpone to see what will happen, because for example, taking my country, North Macedonia, for example, we had a good situation with COVID-19, and now we are into really bad these days. So this uncertainty, I'm not able to plan because all my plans from before like crushed.
Angela, did you see the last question? What is your major?
Yes, I saw it. So primarily, I applied for mechanical engineering, and I mean, but you know, most of the U.S. Colleges, universities, I think maybe all of them, like have postponed. You can choose your major in sophomore or even in the beginning of junior year. So that I am heading with my major for now, but it is a subject of change. Another major or adding 2 minors, 1 minor, but I will go for now mechanical engineering.
Hi Lisa, we see you again. Perfect. Right on time. Because I wanted to invite you at the end to tell us a bit more about Syracuse University. A lot of our students at the moment are in the process of researching schools and creating their college lists. So please share a bit about the specific programs, the highlights of your university, and what is important that international students need to know when they maybe look into your school and eventually put it on their lists.
Absolutely. So I apologize for all my technical issues today. Ironically, I am on kind of a wait list for a new computer. So I'm waiting for that new laptop. The one I have keeps crashing. I was hoping I could make it through today. So I'm sorry I keep kind of logging in and out. But do you want me to go ahead and speak now, or should I wait until we're done with questions?
Please go ahead. Yes, I think Dali wanted to ask something, but maybe if she's preparing to turn on the camera, or maybe wait for your turn and then ask the question, it's fine with us.
Great. Okay. So as you might know, if you know a little bit about Syracuse, I'll pull up a presentation here just to show you some graphics there. But we're a medium-sized university in kind of upstate New York, and I think as international students are getting to know Syracuse, we're in a very different location than New York City. So if you want that residential campus feel, we have about 15,000 undergraduate students, so it's a very different feel being in a small city than in New York, definitely. We do have a strong international population at Syracuse, and it's been growing over the past few years. We're working very hard and are very proud that we have students from about 130 countries all around the world on our campus. So we typically, during the fall and in the spring, we're out on the road, and we're in Europe, and we're in many other countries and regions around the world, meeting with students at their high schools or attending university fairs. I think this year in particular, we don't know yet if we're really going to be able to do much travel. So sessions like this are extremely important, and I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more of them in the coming months because we may not be able to do that travel. So I would encourage students to take advantage of all the sessions that we have that are specific to the university, but we'll also be doing a lot of general interest sessions like this as well. But as far as Syracuse in particular, we have about 200 majors and 100 minors, so many, many great academic options for students. I think typically we're best known for communications, business, architecture, visual and performing arts. We also have very strong programs in the liberal arts and humanities, as well as sport management. That tends to be a pretty popular program for our international students as well. So about 20% of our campus altogether is international students. That's undergrad and graduate. And we have a very strong international services center, and they help you with obviously immigration and visa questions and all of that, but they also do a great job fostering community on campus. They plan social events on Friday nights and things like that to help you really acclimate to living on a university campus. So I think that's important. So you might have an idea of a major that you want, a setting, whether a small campus, large city, suburban, rural, whatever that might be, but it's important for you to know what kind of community will be there too. We want you to come in and make friends with people from everywhere, but obviously you want to know that there's a strong international community, other people from your part of the world, and to kind of have that shared experience as you transition to life as a university student. So we're definitely proud to offer that. What I will do quickly here as I open up my presentation is just give you some photos. I don't want to spend all the time talking about Syracuse, but I'll show you some photos to give you a sense of what our campus looks like. And we have some rankings information and some good things there. So I'll pop that up for just a moment. Okay, so that will look familiar. I think we saw this photo earlier. So we are in a small city, but it is still a lot of green space. Our students like that balance that you have the traditional campus feel. The very center of the photo there is our quad. So that's kind of the heart of campus with all of your academic buildings around that. So very classic American feel, American university campus feel. So this is one of our classrooms in the Newhouse School. As you can see here, those 200 majors and 100 minors. Our average class size is quite small. We do have some larger courses. For us, those tend to be entry-level science courses, so those tend to be a little bit larger. We do focus on professional experiences, of course. This is just kind of a small and kind of US-centric, but still a nice sampling of the companies, the organizations that come looking for our students every year for internships and certainly for full-time placement. We are a Carnegie Tier 1 institution, so there are about 100 universities in the US that have that rating distinction, and we're very proud to be one of those. So if you're interested in research at all, certainly a great place for that. We encourage study abroad even for international students, coming to the US as an abroad experience. Go abroad again, it's always a good idea. We've been sending students abroad for about 100 years at Syracuse, so always something that we encourage you to take part in. I talked a little bit about campus life earlier. We have more than 300 clubs and organizations, including a lot of cultural groups.
And Dali was yes, sorry, Dali, go ahead. I know you tried 2 times to ask your question. Go ahead.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Biljana. Thanks for this webinar. Very rarely you will see webinars on the waitlist. Thank you. Congrats, Angela. And thank you, Lisa. It has been really very insightful. I have 2 questions. I'm Education USA advisor in Georgia, and I'm advising back my cohort of 120 students. So it's really interesting to hear when universities have their own percent of how many international students they accept. Does it somehow also, becomes a part of the wait list? Is it also like, stratified how many domestic students are on the wait list and how many internationals? Also, Angela may be, lucky, but does the financial aid also come with the wait list, or mostly the financial aid is depleted by that time? What is the general practice rather than exception? And finally, maybe you could just little bit tell us, what is your feel? Have US colleges already finished up their waitlist notifications, or it's still ongoing?
Right. So I think this year is kind of an outlier in a lot of ways. And so the way that one university might approach the process doesn't necessarily have any bearing on another university, but we don't have a specific number of, we are going to waitlist a certain number of international students and a certain number of domestic. It's why it's called enrollment management. So we sort of take a look at all the students we recommend for admission, do that predictive modeling to see, okay, if we admitted all these students, where would we kind of land with our incoming class, and then sort of make adjustments, because we don't want to bring in a class, for Syracuse, for example, of 8,000 first-year students. Our goal is around 3,600. So it's not that, okay, we're going to waitlist 1,000 students this year. It just kind of depends on the applicant pool and who's applied, the strength of the applicant pool that year, and particular enrollment goals that we might have for, say, the College of Arts and Sciences or the musical theater major. So there's a lot of data analysis that goes into it, but typically, and kind of speaking generally for American universities, we don't go into it saying we're going to offer waitlist decisions to X number of students. It's just how the applicant pool kind of shakes out. With the financial piece, I think it's common for there to be limited financial aid or scholarships available, and that's the same for domestic, typically as international students. It does vary by year to year, so that's a good question for students to ask of their admissions officers if scholarships will still be available. I know at Syracuse, we don't offer need-based aid to international students in general, so that part's the same. And for us, typically, our scholarships have been awarded already, and that funding is kind of exhausted by that point, typically. As far as where we are as American universities right now, I know at Syracuse, we did go out to the wait list. We're kind of waiting to see as the summer progresses. I can't speak to other universities where they might be in the process. So we all kind of function independently. I know that can be really confusing for students and parents, and certainly for EdUSA advisors too. Never hesitate to talk to us, or we can connect on, IACAC Facebook pages. There are lots of different ways we can connect. We're really happy to do that, to sort of talk to you about where we are as individual institutions. I think I got answers for all your questions there. I hope so.
I would just say here, because I got waitlisted at other 4 universities, they haven't, they all haven't finished their acceptances, because at the end they're going to say, like, if they are they're closing their waitlist officially, or they're still having some rolling basis. So they're still having, and especially this year is a year, Ms. Lisa can relay, when many students are taking gap years, especially international, because of the great uncertainty that we have in front of us.
Absolutely. And I would say, kind of on that same topic, I know we've had a lot of questions about the SAT, and I just wanted to mention many universities are going SAT optional next year because of all these issues. At Syracuse, we don't ever really require the SAT if you're studying outside the US. So I know that can be really stressful. Check with the universities. It may be something that you don't have to worry about this year before you start to go down that road. I know that can be an extra stressor, especially I know students have had trouble signing up for the SAT this fall. You might not need to. So if you have your list, or you're working on your list of universities, ask that question, and it may be that you don't have to worry about the SAT this year.
And Lisa, since you mentioned that, and you mentioned that this is a really, it will be a strange year for all of us, right? The students, the advisors, the universities on your side as well. But as you mentioned, we see a new list coming up with universities going test optional, and some of the students are now in the process of registering for the test, and usually they ask for our advice, what should we do? But many of the students, for example, that I work with will seek full scholarships. So it's not easy in a way for me to say, just don't get the tests. I would rather say, if you have the opportunity, if there are test dates available in the fall, as the College Board just announced, we have a couple of dates in August, September, October, and November. I would rather, maybe you can also, your school is test optional anyway, but I would rather say to students, take that opportunity and strengthen your application in a way, if that's possible for you, because I know that when they create their colleges, they'll have a variety of options, right? Some of them would be test optional, but there will be schools that will still stick to the plan to revised SAT or task scores for international students, right? Because test optional does not mean that the school is not requiring tests from international students. Maybe in some part for Americans, but there are many schools that will seek test scores from international students regarding the financial aspect of the application, right? So maybe this is more of a comment, right? I would say from our side as an advisor, because we are also facing a new way of working. It's not the same. to my students, this is not a usual application year. It's completely different. Nothing that we have done in the past would know that will work this year, right? So we have to adjust to the new situation, and just as you said, contact particular universities, check their policies, even though they change really quickly this year, and make sure that we have all the relevant information necessary for students to have a really strong applications in the fall.
I think absolutely. And the only thing I would add regarding the SAT is that maybe students should hold off on submitting their scores to the colleges or universities that are test optional. What we tell students a lot is take it, see how you do, and we're happy to have those conversations kind of one-on-one with the student to see if it would be an advantage for them to send it or not. For example, our communications program, the average test scores are very high for that program. So if a student falls within their typical range, absolutely send that. We'd love to have that. If it's maybe a little bit below, it doesn't mean that it's a bad score, but for a couple of those programs in particular, it might not be helpful. So some universities do have sort of preferential way to handle applications coming regarding scholarships. So if you have a good SAT, that might help you. Some don't. So I know that's intimidating to tell students you should be in touch with all these different people at all the different universities, but that's really your best way to know individually as universities what the best way to do is. And I always tell students, maybe start an Excel document, have your list of schools, and then have kind of columns for these things so you can be really organized and know, oh, maybe this university says to send it, this university says no, and that way you can kind of keep track of what can be a little overwhelming. But we're here, you're here. I hope students know that they have a lot of resources, and that's why we're here, is to really help you figure these things out, even more so this year when everything's a little different than it's ever been before.
Yeah. Yes, that's a perfect ending, I would say, to our webinar today. Thank you very much. We don't have any further questions. If we do, you have Angela's email over there, and you know how to reach us, the Advising Center. I would be happy to provide Lisa's email if you like, although it was part of the presentation as well. Thank you, Lisa, for participating. It was really wonderful to have you with us today and hear more about Syracuse University. Best of luck in the rest of the year. Angela, thank you again for the wonderful presentation as well. It was really useful, I believe, for the students to hear your tips and how your journey so far. And thanks for the participants. We hope that this was useful for everyone as well. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and hope we'll stay in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Stay safe,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.